In CP3-2, Part 2, you're going to be able to use algebra to find the circumcenter of a triangle. So we're going to take what we learned in Part 1, and we're going to take it a step further and actually find the circumcenter using those equations. All right, let's take a look at our first example. It says find the point of intersection, which will be our circumcenter, of the perpendicular bisectors. Because they're perpendicular bisectors, that's why it's the circumcenter, of the line segment between 6, 8, 10, 0, and between the points 4, 2, and 0, 4. Since we're looking at these perpendicular bisectors, we actually need to find the equation for both of the lines and then figure out where they meet. So to find the equation, just like we were working on in the previous lesson, you have to find the slope, the perpendicular slope, and then the midpoint. And those items are going to help you write the equation. So we need that for both of the lines. And then our lines are going to intersect at a point, and we're going to figure out what that exact point is. All right, let's take a look at our first line. So that's going to be using these two ordered pairs, 6, 8, and 10, 0. And we're going to find the slope, the change in the y over the change in the x. So 0 minus 8 over 10 minus 6, negative 8 fourths, which reduces to negative 2. The opposite reciprocal would be 1/2. The midpoint, we're going to add our x's, 6 plus 10, divide by 2, add our y's, 8 plus 0, divide by 2. It's going to give us 16 halves, or 8. 8 halves, which is 4. So there's our midpoint. Now we can use the perpendicular slope and the midpoint to write the equation of this first line. Y minus y1, so y minus 4 equals m, which is 1/2, x minus x1, which is. Today, we are going to take this one step further, and we want to solve and get y all by itself. So we're going to distribute the 1/2. So we have y minus 4 equals 1/2. X minus 1/2 times 8 is 4. We want to get out y all by itself, so we're going to add 4 to both sides. So we get y equals 1/2 x plus 0. And we can write that as y equals 1/2 x. We are going to use this equation in a little bit, so we're going to come back to it. But for now, let's move on to line 2. Line 2 is using these two ordered pairs. We need to find the slope. So we're going to do the change in y's, 4 minus 2 over the change in x's, 0 minus 4. And we get 2 over negative 4, which is the same thing as negative 1/2. So the perpendicular slope, it's positive 2. Our midpoint, so we're going to add the x's, 4 plus 0, divided by 2, add the y's, 2 plus 4, divided by 2. Our midpoint is 2, 3. To write our equation, we're going to use the perpendicular slope and our midpoint. So y minus y1, which is 3, equals 2. X minus x1, which is 2. Again, just like in the previous problem, we need to take this a step further, and we need to solve for y. So we're going to distribute our 2. Y minus 3 equals 2x minus 4. And we want to get y all by itself, so we're going to add 3 to both sides. Y equals 2x minus 1. We're going to use that equation here in just a moment. Now that we have two equations, we're going to figure out where do these equations meet. Where do they intersect? They're lines, so they're going to intersect at a point. Since both of these equations are y equals, that means y is equal to both of those things. So I can actually set those things equal to each other. So we can take the 1/2 x and set it equal to 2x minus 1. Now, anytime we have a fraction, the first thing that we want to do is we want to clear the fractions, and we can do that by multiplying both sides by 2. Be very careful when you multiply the right side by 2 that you put that into parentheses. The 2's will cancel on the left, so we have x equals, we're going to distribute the 2 to both items inside. So we have 4x minus 2. Now I want to get x all by itself, so I'm going to subtract 4x on both sides. Negative 3x equals negative 2. Divide both sides by negative 3, and I get x equals 2/3. Now a point has an x value and a y value. So now what we need to do is we need to plug this number, substitute this x value back into either one of our equations and solve for y. I'm going to choose this top one. So y equals 1/2 times 2/3. I substituted 2/3 in for x. Now I can see, using the good as gold strategy, these two cancel. Y equals 1/3. Now we have our x value and our y value of our ordered pair. So our ordered pair, or where they meet, is at 2/3, 1/3. Example number 2 says find the point of intersection of the perpendicular bisectors of the triangle with vertices A, B, and C. So here we are going to start with exactly what we did in the first part of the lesson, where we have to find the slope, the perpendicular slope, the midpoint, and then write the equation. Once we've done that for all of these, AB, BC, and AC, then we're going to do what we did in the last problem and pick two equations, set them equal to each other, solve for x, and then find the y. And that's going to give us the point where they meet. So let's start with AB. The slope for AB, change in y, so 3 minus 1 over the change in x, 4 minus negative 2 is 2 over 6, which is 1/3. The perpendicular slope will be negative 3. The midpoint, we're going to add our x's, divide by 2, add our y's, divide by 2, and we get the point 1, 2. We're going to take our slope and our midpoint, and we're going to write our equation. Y minus y1, which is 2, equals m negative 3, x minus x1, which is 1. We're going to come back to this equation here in a little bit, potentially. Let's go on to our next. We're going to look at B and C. So we're going to start with the slope. 1 minus 3 over negative 4 minus 4. Negative 2, negative 8 is equal to positive 1/4. The reciprocal would be negative 4. Midpoint, we're going to add 4 plus negative 4 divided by 2. 3 plus 1 divided by 2. We get the point. 4 plus negative 4 is 0, divided by 2 is 0. 4 divided by 2 is 2. We're going to now write our equation using our slope and our midpoint. Y minus 2 equals negative 4, x plus 0. Finally, we're going to look at AC. 1 minus 1 over negative 4 minus negative 2, which would be plus 2, equals 0 over 2, which equals 0. Remember the opposite reciprocal. Right now, 0 is a line that looks like this for a slope. We want to go the other way, which is vertical. So it'll be undefined. We're still going to find our midpoint. Our midpoint of A and C, we're going to add -2 plus -4 divided by 2. 1 plus 1 divided by 2. We get the point -3, 1. Now, when we think of a line that's vertical, okay, remember that's going to be an x equals equation. And it's going to be an x equals whatever the x value is. So this one's going to be x equals -3. Looking at the next one, we're going to distribute -4. So we have y minus 2 equals -4x plus 0. Add 2 to both sides. Y equals -4x plus 2. Our last equation will stay as x equals -3. Can't really simplify that any further. Okay, so now we have 3 different equations we could use, okay? All we need to do is pick 2. Okay, we're going to pick 2 equations to use. Doesn't matter which ones. In this case, because we already have x equals -3, that means that our x value, no matter what, is going to be -3. Okay, so I'm going to choose x equals -3 to be one of them. Since I already know that that is the x value, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to substitute that x value back in to one of the other 2 equations to solve for y. You can pick whatever other equation makes you happy. I'm going to choose y equals -4x plus 2. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take this -3 and we're going to substitute it in for x to figure out what y equals. Y equals -4 times -3 plus 2. Y equals -4 times -3 is positive 12 plus 2 is 14. Now we have our x value and our y value, so we're going to write our final answer as an ordered pair. -3, 14. So just to reiterate our steps here, the first thing that we did is we found the equations. Remember, we used the slope, the perpendicular slope, and then the midpoint. To write the equation, we use the perpendicular slope and the midpoint. Once we got the equation, the second step was to pick 2 equations. The third step is to find x and y by setting the equations equal to each other. In our next problem, it says find the circumcenter of the triangle with vertices D, E, and F. Now, as you look at the word circumcenter, remember that that just means we have perpendicular bisectors, which is exactly what we did and worked on in example 2 and example 1. So here, again, we're going to solve using the same exact steps. We have to find the slope, the perpendicular slope, and the midpoint. Notice how in all of these problems I have set up the 2 points that you're going to use. If you had to set up the points yourself, we would use the 3 different combinations of the 3 points. All right, let's start with D and E. To find the slope, change in y. So 6 minus negative 6, which is 6 plus 6, over change in x, 4 minus 0, 12 over 4, which is 3. Opposite reciprocal is negative 1/3. Midpoint, we're going to add our x's, 0 plus 4, divide by 2. Add our y's, negative 6 plus 6, divided by 2. We get a midpoint of 2, 0. Now it's time for our equation. Y minus y1. We're using our midpoint, perpendicular slope. So y minus 0 equals negative 1/3 x minus x1, which is 2. Remember, we can't leave it like this. We're going to actually distribute. Y minus 0 is just y. So we have negative 1/3 x plus 2/3. On to our next one, E and F. Change in y, 6 minus 0, over change in x, 4 minus 12, is 6 over negative 8, which simplifies to negative 3/4. Opposite reciprocal is 4/3. Midpoint, we're going to add our x's. 4 plus 12 divided by 2. Add our y's. 6 plus 0 divided by 2. So we get 8, 3. We're going to write our equation. Y minus y1. Again, we're using our midpoint and our perpendicular slope. So y minus 3 equals 4/3 x minus 8. I need to get y all by itself. So I'm going to distribute. Y minus 3 equals 4/3 x minus 32/3. Now we want to add 3 to both sides, so we get y all by itself. So we're going to have y equals 4/3 x. When I add 3, I'm going to add 3 to 32/3. So when I add 3 wholes, we could think of it as, if we have negative 32/3 plus 3 wholes is the same thing as 9/3, which gives me negative 23/3, so it's minus 23/3. And our last one, D and F. 0 plus 6 over 12 minus 0. We have 6/12, which is 1/2. Negative 2 is our perpendicular slope. Midpoint, 0 plus 12 divided by 2. Negative 6 plus 0 divided by 2. We get 6, negative 3. We're going to use our perpendicular slope and our midpoint. So we have y minus negative 3, so y plus 3 equals our slope of negative 2x minus 6. Now I need to get y all by itself, so I'm going to distribute. Negative 2x plus 12. Bring our y plus 3 down. I'm going to subtract 3 on both sides to get y equals negative 2x plus 9. Our 3 equations are here. 1, 2, and 3. Since we have found our 3 equations, we're now going to pick 2 of them to use. You pick whichever 2 make you happy. Okay, so we're going to pick 2 equations. I am going to choose the first one and the last one. So y equals negative 1/3 x plus 2/3. Y equals negative 2x plus 9. Now they both are equal to y. Y is equal to both these equations. We're going to use the idea of substitution, which you learned in algebra. Set these equations equal to each other. So negative 1/3 x plus 2/3 equals negative 2x plus 9. I see fractions. I see numbers in the denominator. I don't want those. So I'm going to clear the denominators by multiplying both sides by 3. When I do that, these 3's cancel, and I have negative 1x plus 2 equals, on the other side I have to be really careful, remember, to distribute the 3, negative 6x plus 27. Now I want to get all of my x's on one side and all of my constants on the other. So I'm going to add 6x to both sides, subtract 2 from both sides. 1x minus 6x is 5x. My 2's cancel. On the other side, my negative 6 plus 6 cancels. 27 minus 2 is 25. Divide both sides by 5, and I get x equals 5. Now that I know what my x value is, I'm going to substitute that back into either equation. I can pick either one of those. Doesn't matter. I'm going to choose the bottom one. I'm going to substitute 5 for x. So y equals negative 2 times 5 plus 9. Y equals negative 2 times 5 is 10. Negative 10 plus 9 is negative 1. Now we have our x and our y, so we can write it as an ordered pair. 5, negative 1. Again, we started by finding our equations. We picked 2 of them, set them equal to each other, solve for x, then substitute x in to solve for y, and you got your final answer of an ordered pair. Now it's time to practice. If you need to rewatch any parts of this video, rewatch them. Each question does take multiple steps. Okay, you can go back to the last example, example 2, where I put all the steps out. Make sure that you have these notes written down and that you've done this before you go on to the practice. As always, join me with any questions.